On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk Samsung smart things, the Displace TV, and Séura lit mirrors. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 363. It's not real! Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Dennis Holzer. He is the CEO of Powerhouse Alliance. How you doing, sir?
I am doing terrific. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thank you for being here. And then we have Mr. Rich Fregosa. He's the principal of Fregosa Design. How you doing, Uncle Richie?
I'm doing good, brother. We have to decide to have an episode where you invite people that don't like you all at once instead of having, instead of every one of your friends. I'd like to go ahead and just have a show with people.
I do the John McCain, my friends. Everybody's a friend until they, most of them are a friend to me. From my end, and I just
friends of the show.
And I just don't care what they think of me, because I don't want to know that, because it's depressing and it gives me a complex.
Well, fortunately, the West Coast did not float away from all of the storms. This is the first time that we've had sun in like 2 weeks. So
yeah, it's been a little rainy up there.
Yeah, a little floody. It was just a wee bit floody, but
a wee bit
all
wet.
Doing well and returning to our West Coast mellow vibes.
There you go. All right, gentlemen, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Samsung discusses plans for smart home post CES 2023. If you listened to our show last week, we talked a lot about CES and specifically highlighted the fact that in the Samsung booth, they almost exclusively showed smart home, smart things, all of those aspects. It wasn't just, hey, look at all the TVs we sell, and that side of things. Almost everything was about the connected home. So read through this article. It covers a lot of really, really, I don't want to say changes, but interesting thoughts from obviously a huge leader in the industry. Dennis, I want to start with you on this. Obviously, they mentioned Matter quite a bit because they're one of the prominent contributors. They have also highlighted a lot about their SmartThings platform. When you talk to somebody in our channel and talk automation platforms, etc., SmartThings is not usually something that's going to come to mind. Where does the SmartThings ecosystem, if you will, where does that fit into our channel? Does it fit at all?
Well, Matt, first of all, as a group, Powerhouse is a distributor of the Samsung products. And I think one of the areas, and we've heard that funky word for 30 years called convergence. Mm-hmm. And, what's happening when you take a company like Samsung, who's in your basement with your washer and dryer, they're maybe in your kitchen with their refrigerator. Let's not forget they have a high-end line of decor appliances. And, you take the Ring doorbell and now you can see that person on your refrigerator door. I think what happens is that their line of smart products become somewhat mainstream to the average person, mm-hmm. because they're in so many places, the name is known, and not everybody wants a complete smart home. They may want a smart home in sections of their home, but not in all their home. And I think Samsung, because the name is known, specifically, I go back to the days when, frankly, it was RCA and Sylvania, and most of those companies have obviously moved off, and Samsung has really filled that void significantly with a few others. And because of name, because of abilities, and because of the quantity of products, they fill a void, which I think a lot of the other systems, smart systems, don't fill. There's bits and pieces, and then there's, total systems. You get into, the Crestrons of the world and Control4s of the world, but I think they fill a void for the average consumer, and also for the installer that, can't put bits and pieces of those other systems, needs something mainstream.
Yeah, that's a good point. Rich, there's a couple really interesting aspects of this. They highlight that the housing trends are really dictating the smart home trends. And they allude to in the article that 25% of people aged 25 to 34 are living in a multi-generational household, which is a really, really nice way of saying they're living with their parents. They also highlight, it's genius marketing. I love it. They also highlight a couple things further down in the article, talking about, essentially almost a one room solution, right? A way to, dock your phone on a smart thing station and trigger a couple things in that room, not necessarily the whole house, but just in that room. And that the personalization of that is going to be the differentiation factor for them. Given what Dennis said about the void that they fill, and given the name brand recognition, does this not almost open a whole new avenue for smart home, for connected home?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things that is starting to occur. You can hear, all of the publicized reports about how Amazon is just hemorrhaging money over Alexa and their big bet on voice. But it was the primary device that opened the floodgate. I think Alexa got part of the overall consumer community. As Alexa listened, the overall consumer community to as we decided that we don't want her listening in. That's the name of this episode, which is Stop Listening In. What we've discovered is that it was the first foray for a lot of people. It was inexpensive, and people figured out that there were some security issues that they weren't crazy about occurring with using a company like Amazon to provide their voice control. So I find that Matter is becoming version 2.0 of consumer voice control, where they are saying, well, we're not going to give you 100% security, but we're also not going to give you zero security, right? We're not going to harvest your information, but we're going to use it to fine tune your experience. Insert air quotes, for real. And Matter is, I think, the approach where the large companies, the Apples of the world, Samsung, all of them have said, all right, we tried it on our own on an ecosystem. We're not going to admit that our version 1.0 was a failure. We're just going to very subtly move into version 2.2. And hey, look, we're all playing together. Isn't this great? We're doing it for you. They're not doing it for the consumers. They're doing it because they have exhausted so much money into bringing their products to market that it is far easier for them at this point to work across a licensing scheme than to develop brand new one-off products. And so for the consumer, ultimately, it'll be better. We're going to see price points that'll come in, but strictly with what Samsung is doing, kids living with their moms, we talked about at the beginning of the show, which was that is a large segment of the up and coming consumer and the buying groups that are going to be there, that we're going to be seeing over the next 5 years. That is the prime demographic for electronics, like smack dab in the center. You got that group there, and then you've got the 50 plus male, right? The 50 plus male is going to be the one who goes for the big ticket items. But like, if you're trying to sell 1 million of something, this is who you're going after. And because these people are in multi-generational households, the rules of the smart home have changed. Before, it was about an integrated ecosystem. right? Because you'd have two people and maybe kids going through a house. And so if you went from the kitchen to the bedroom to XYZ, you wanted a unified experience. Well, because you have these multi-generational families, you now have isolated rooms where they may just be interested in controlling that specific area. So if it is a purchase sub $1,000 where they can go ahead and, tech out their room that they grew up in, but now they're a 20 something, that gives them some, I think psychologically, it's that adulthood purchase. It's like, I did this cool stuff. I did the tech. Same reason why they have $1,000 phone, $700 smartwatch, all of those things in terms of a purchase standpoint. If you can make it, a purchase where they feel that they can take a flyer on it, you're going to sell some stuff. And so I think with Samsung, they just decided by joining Matter, given the trend of, they let Amazon be the canary in the coal mine to see where those hazards were. They're able to now say, okay, we're going to play with everybody because we're already providing chips to a lot of these guys. So let's jump on in.
All right, gentlemen, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from The Verge. A $3,000 US totally wireless Displace TV is the definition of CES absurdity, from Chris Welch, who is a great tech reporter. If you followed CES coverage at all, this was one of the highlights that made all of the newsreels. God, I sound really old when I say that. All the TikTok things, if I watch TikTok, which I don't, which is why I said newsreels. It's from a company called Displace. It's a LG Signature OLED M TV, similar to that. It's supposed to run off of 4 hot swappable batteries and attached to a wall via suction cups. And again, it's $3,000, which for a 55-inch 4K is a little pricey, but it suction cups to the wall and is completely wireless. Rich, I have seen countless videos of this. I've heard a bunch of, water cooler talk about this. It's pre-production. They're planning to ship 100 units first run. They can't seem to do math because they say if you put 4 of them in a cube, you're going to get a 16K 220-inch image, which is not how arithmetic works. Maybe it does where they go to school. I don't know. I don't really even understand the concept of this. I don't know the use case. I don't know why you'd want it necessarily. Who's buying this? If they can make it, other than the person that has $3,000 that they really could care less about and go, oh, cool, I can stick this to a mirror.
They won the press wars. This was a marketing win because it's not a product yet.
Isn't that CES in general?
Yeah, but this is one of those ones where if you can win the war of coverage, when you go out and you start looking for investment dollars,
yep,
that is a huge lead in to potentially make it a product. Here's the part that sucks. Within the next 30 days, I'm going to start getting calls about, well, why do we need all these wires? Why does this have to be here? Can't we just get one of those wireless TVs? The amount of calls that integrators are going to get from designers and architects about wireless TV. This is one of the downsides about, when you have a great marketing approach. Yeah, their math is off. The fact that you're supposed to be able to put them in a multi-display configuration, and basically their sale pitch was buy 3 get 1 free. Literally, buy 3 get 1 free. It's the constant hedging of you could put the batteries in, but we don't know real world yet. I mean, there was so much hedging when they displayed it. Now, yes, that's part of CES. That's part of when you're part of the industry. you know that they're playing the smoke and mirrors game. Consumers don't have that experience. Consumers just go, well, I saw it in the press, I saw a YouTube video, or I saw it in my TikToks, it must be real. And so this always goes back down to expectation management, right? You now have to re-educate your customer on what is available, what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, and what will be a good idea in a few years. But somebody had to be first. I mean, that's the way it comes down. Somebody had to be first. LG has really taken it, except for the part of the power cord, right? And that's the whole thing. It's like, oh yeah, we do wireless. So how do you power it? Oh yeah, we'll get to it. And if you ever notice, like, the one that always gets me is the super thin TVs that they Photoshop out the power cord.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh yeah, power plug optional if you want it to work. So, as soon as I saw this, I just went, here we go again. It will be a new market. Yes. Will somebody will somebody crack the code on it at some point for usable displays with some form of power? Again, where does it work? If you've got an IT department or a service department, hotels are a possibility. Rough placement areas. But to position this as a consumer device, it's going to create a lot more confusion than it's going to help for the next year.
Dennis, all of that aside, and I don't disagree with Rich there, the part that I can't get past is the use of suction cups and a vacuum system. Now, I will preface that with one of the coolest tools I own is we have the Milwaukee air tip suction thingy that goes on our on the pack out vacuums we have, and you push that to the wall, you hit the power button on the vacuum, and not only does it suck the dust from whatever you're cutting out of the trough thing, but it also attaches itself to the wall, so you don't have to hold it, which is amazing. We're looking at for the shop one of the Festool air suction workbenches where you can put a board on it and it'll suction it down so that you can do whatever you want. It's phenomenal, but it plugs in, and all of those things are designed to essentially hold horizontally, whereas this is a $3,000 TV that is supposed to vacuum itself to a flat surface. What happens when that seal is broken unintentionally, either due to a battery issue or whatever? That right there makes every other cool aspect of this useless to me. Is this something that you can see in any way, shape, or form making the light of day long term?
Absolutely not.
Yes.
It's first of all, the talk of suction cup and commercial application, if that ever passes, then I guess I'm going to leave the industry, because and again, forget just our industry, the trials and tribulations of everything you need to do in a commercial setting versus a residential setting. Putting a picture on a wall. If you go into any hotel room, you will find that picture is locked onto that wall with screws, nails, wire, and, every TV has 13 prongs, so it's grounded and regrounded and regrounded. I have never in my life thus far been able to find any suction device that works for me on anything, let alone, and that's in a residential use. So moving from commercial to residential, how many residential people, even if the math were working for 4K TVs, if that math did work, nobody's putting that into really a residential application. And I agree with Rich. What happens, and we've unfortunately and fortunately, every show we go to, and it doesn't matter whether it's CES, and I'm sure this applies to every show and every other aspect of life, that people got to make a splash because that creates their name,
Mm-hmm.
and that creates that they're a forward-thinking company. And, right now, every consumer grasps onto portability, grasps onto wireless. And, the fact is, I think this was a great advertising ploy. They succeeded. And you're right. Now that there are such things as Alexa and Google and other things, consumers get this information, and there's always somebody who wants the newest BMW.
Yeah.
So you're right. What are they going to do? They're going to call their integrator, and they're going to say, I just saw this wireless TV, and I have a perfect place for it. And then we look like bad guys because we end up saying, no, it's not a real product. What do you mean? I saw it on TV. Well, it really, these things aren't going to pass. And what happens is it ultimately backfires. And again, I think in every industry, from people who want to be out there, I applaud LG for, they achieved their goal. That's the bottom line. And between Samsung, Sony, LG, they're all trying to get one step ahead, at least in the public's eyes.
Yeah.
And this is a mode that they used, and they were very successful at it. And unfortunately, we're all going to pay the price.
We'll have to see if Displace can make it happen. All right, gentlemen, let's hit our last topic of the day real quick. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today, and a good friend of the show, Jeremy Glowacki. Séura introduces the next generation of lighted mirrors. Yes, not just TVs behind mirrors, but a traditional lit mirror. They've got what they are calling the brightest, slimmest, lightest, and most energy efficient lighted mirrors to date for Séura, and brings their patented pending marine grade mirror housing design that provides game-changing functionality and aesthetic improvements. Go read through the quick article real quick. It's a very interesting concept here. Dennis, I'm glad you're here for this one, because we've seen a huge push in the channel to kind of embrace the bathroom a little bit more. And we've covered it, I think, 3 weeks in a row in some way, shape, or form. On the show last week, we were talking a lot about Kohler and their push to our market to help them get some of their smart bathroom products installed and functioning properly from the tech side. This looks like another, just add on to that side of, hey, we're the integrators. We work with them for TVs. They also make these awesome lit mirrors. You're looking at lighted mirrors already. Why don't you use these? They're fantastic. Is there a push from the distribution side to support fixtures in this sense?
In our experience thus far, the answer is no. Specifically over the last 2 to 3 years, the electronics business, the integration side of the electronics business has boomed with people doing things in their houses. And integrators, many integrators, even though we're starting to see a little slowdown, are still backed up in doing what they do. And as a result of that, they are slow to embrace new areas into their business because they're so busy doing what they're doing and what they do well and what they know.
Yeah.
And, it's, and I will put this in, I'm sure you'll not remember, it's still going on, that there's a big push in our industry to do things like water shutoff valves because you can control them on your phone and different integral products like that. And I think this is one of those products that factories are trying to get this channel to embrace that product, yet they're busy enough with what they're doing and what their core is to start looking in directions of things like lighted mirrors. And I think this, for our integrators, and for, kitchen and bath people, what we try to do is we try to couple up with installers. So the bathroom installer is the bathroom installer. We're the electronics installer. We'll work with them to give the customer, the experience that they're looking for. But we're not going to make a right or left turn at this point in where we are in electronics to go after products like that to try and sell them.
All right. Rich, let me ask you this. There's been a massive push in the channel to get into light fixtures. We've seen it from a couple of manufacturers within the industry. We've seen it from some major manufacturers outside of the industry who are pushing to get in, and not just low voltage lighting, but also line voltage lighting. If you are an integrator who has gone down that lighting path, is this a simple add-on?
I think it can be. Here's one of the things that I really appreciate about Séura. Family owned. They have been committed to the CI marketplace from day one. Tim and Gretchen Gilbertson, who are the CEO and co-CEO, are amazing people. In fact, Gretchen was one of the very first people that I interviewed for CE Pro many, many years ago. And so I've always had a very warm spot in my heart for them as manufacturers because they get the market. It's not a product that they just went, oh, we'll just go ahead and make a mirror. They've been at it 20 years now. Mm-hmm. And we've put a lot of them in when we need and again, in a bespoke situation, as the technology advisor, that is a much different route that you're going to take than, a couple of pair of speakers and a Sonos. I mean, they're just two different markets at that point. Selling a luxury or a bespoke commodity has to be part of your overall company DNA. And you have to decide who you are when you're going to sell a product like that. There are ways to partner with, typically something like this comes out of a partnership with the architect or the designer. Very rarely is it with one of the trades where you've got an electrician or a plumber and they go, hey, let's go ahead and put in a mirror TV. It doesn't work that way. This is a design decision, which has benefits, but it's also just one of those really cool gee whiz things. But it is one of those instances where you have to have the right product in there to prevent failure. Because if you go in from a cost-cutting measure and that thing fails, you're in a world of hurt. I mean, we've done them in saunas, we've done them in showers, we've done them in, all of these unique locations. But the first and foremost thing that you have to deal with what is basically going to be almost a quasi-permanent installation is that thing has to last. So, I think that it can be a often unexplored profit center if you position it correctly. But it is one of those items that you have to consider how you're selling it, consider your client. It's a great lead-in because, again, if you want to go from step one to step two, which is, well, how do I get into all of these projects that show up in these magazines and everything else? You have to become a thought leader in your area. And the way that you become a thought leader in your area to trades that don't know what you know is to be able to do things like a lunch and learn at a design company or an architectural office to go, by the way, here's some of the manufacturers that we work with. Here are unique products that we have for, these kind of projects. It is not just a, hey, you want a mirror TV and somebody goes, oh yeah, I've got to have one. That is not how you approach that sale. This is part of finding a way to integrate yourself with your design community if possible. I think it's a great way to introduce yourself personally, because once you get that down, you're building the relationships with people that you planted the seed in it. But if you're going to try to treat it like a pair of speakers or an audio video receiver or, an outdoor speaker or something, you're going to fail miserably at that because it's not a thing to sell. It is part of, hey, I'm not just the AV guy. I'm not the cowboy that's coming in who's saying, cut a hole there, right? This is the gripe about the CI industry for the past 35 years. They're cowboys. They come in, they don't play well with others. They just do what they want to do. They sell what they're going to sell. And, they work for the homeowner. They don't necessarily work for the GC or for any other trade. So, we're going to do what we're going to do. I view it as an opportunity for a product to show your maturity in the market.
That's a good point. All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Rich, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Fregosa Design, where can they do that?
You can type my name into the interwebs. I am on the socials, except for TikTok. You won't find me on the TikToks. I'm no Uncle Richie dance moves, but you never know. Maybe we'll get a splash. The company is fregosadesign.com. But hopefully, as I say, I hope the best place you can find me is here on AVNation.tv and our suite of shows, including A State of Control with my good partner, Steve Greenblatt. And in the next 2 weeks, I hope that you will be hearing from me from lovely Barcelona, where I will be at ISE interviewing and doing booth tours for AVNation while I'm out there. So I'm excited about it and looking forward to bringing you all that's good and fun to see from Barcelona.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Mr. Holzer, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Powerhouse Alliance, where can they do that?
Easy, powerhousealliance.com, or you can visit, and if you go to Powerhouse Alliance, you'll see our map of 11 members and 67 locations. Or if you want to just get a hold of me and ask me anything, it's dholzer@powerhousealliance.com. We're happy to take on whatever you'd like. And Matt, I want to thank you for the opportunity today.
Oh, thank you for being here, my friend. Thank you all again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit avnation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.